Ramadan Kareem, everybody. Unit 9 Plants. Plants that feed us. Plants are the producers and they are the beginning of all food chains. They provide us with food either directly by eating them, like fruits and vegetables, or indirectly by eating animals that eat the plants, like sheep, cows, and chicken. Useful grasses. Grass grows almost everywhere. They provide food for many animals, which give us meat and milk. Both farm and wild animals eat grass. In winter, animals eat hay, which is dried grass. Sugar canes is a kind of grass which we can get much of our sugar. So, in this part, we are going to talk about grass. We can find grass everywhere, and it's a food for a lot of animals. Usually, grass could be the reason why we have milk or meat. Animals that eat grass usually in winter eat hay, which is dried grass. Sugarcane is also a type of grass that animals eat, and we get most of our sugar from there. Cereals. Wheat, oats, and barley are all kinds of grasses but are often called cereals. Rye maize and rice are also cereals. The seeds of these plants provide food for people of all over the world. From the wheat grains after they are grounded up, flour forms which cakes and breads are made of. Cornflakes are made from maize. We eat rice in many different ways. So, we have different types of cereals. They all come in different forms. Wheat, oat, and barley are types of grasses, but we usually call them cereals. Rye maize, the one that we make cereal from, the one we eat with milk, and rice are also a type of cereal. They usually have a lot of nutrients, and you can find them all over the world. And we can sometimes make from some of the cereals flour, like wheat grains. After you grind them and you make them into smaller, tiny little pieces, almost powder-like, it turns into flour, which then we use to make cakes and bread. 9.2 Parts of plants. Flowering plants usually have 4 main parts. Roots. They hold the plant in the soil. They also take the in water and mineral salts that plants need to grow from the soil. So if you look at the picture, at the bottom, you can see roots. This is the part where all the nutrients are taken up to the plant. Usually from there, the plant gets its mineral salts and water. Number 2, stems. They act like the skeleton. They help support the parts of the plant that are above the ground. And stems also contain small tubes that help deliver food and water to different parts of the plant. Stems of trees are called trunks. Okay, if we go a little bit higher from the roots in the picture, you can see stems number 2. It's the middle part or the midsection of the plant. It usually holds the upper part of the plant from the ground. It's also responsible for taking nutrients from the roots to the upper part of the plant. It has a small tube in the middle of it that helps the food move about from the bottom to the upper part of the plant. Number 3, leaves are very important because they make the food for the whole plant. They have small pores where air passes through their pores and also gives out the water the plant does not need anymore. They are green because they contain a special chemical that absorbs sunlight. Okay, if we see at the picture number 3, leaves, these are the parts responsible of bringing in nutrients from the sunlight and taking out extra water that the plant doesn't need anymore, that the roots will try to take up to the plant. It also has pores that pass it, and these pores also give out the water. Okay, moving on to the next page. Number 4 is flowers. The flower of the plant produces the fruit of the plant and the seeds. The fruit protects the seed and helps it scatter them. These seeds will then grow into new plants. So if we go back to the picture real quick, as you can see, the flower is the top part of the plant. There is where the plant makes its fruit, and inside the fruit they have the seeds. The seeds are responsible of creating more plants like this one. So the fruit, after it gets eaten, you get the seed, and from it you can make a new plant of the same kind. Moving on. Glossary. Roots, the part of the plant that grows under the ground. Mineral salts, chemical substance plants take from the soil and used as food. Stems, one of the main stalks of the plant. Trunk, the main stem of a tree. Leaves, the flat green part of the plant where it makes food. Pores, a tiny opening in a leaf. Flower, the part of the plant which often has colorful petals. It is where plants produce fruits and seeds. Helping plants to grow. Plants need certain amount of factors to help it grow, develop, and produce. These factors are sunlight, fertile soil, and water to grow. Farmers usually sow seeds in springtime. Plants grow during the summer. By the end of the summer or early autumn, the plants will be ready for harvest. So, how do we help the plant to grow? The plant needs 3 things: good soil, enough sunlight, and enough amount of water. Farmers then proceed to plant the seeds and wait for it to grow over springtime. By the end of the summer and the beginning of autumn, usually these plants sprout and are ready to harvest. Water is very important for the plants. It is taken up by roots and then taken up along the stems in small tubes to the leaves where the food is made. So, water is the main reason why the plant can get its nutrients. It's usually taken up from the roots, up to the stem, and following to the rest of the plants. And then the excess amount of water evaporates from the leaves. Water helps the plants to be firm and upright, the leaves to be flat. If the plants are not watered, we say that the plant is wilted, where the stem and leaves become limp. So, if we don't give a plant enough water, the plant usually does not stay upright and the leaves don't seem to be they look very gloomy actually. If the plants are not watered, we say that the plant is wilted. That's the term we use. The stem and leaves become a bit limp. They kind of look sad. Types of roots. There are 2 main types of roots. Taproots. A taproot is a single thick root with smaller roots covered in root hair grown on it. Some taproots are swollen and stored food like carrots. Okay, so taproots are example for it are carrots. They usually have a middle section part that is very thick, and then eventually stemming out from it very tiny hair-like roots. They're very tiny and very thin. They almost look like hair. On to the next page. Fibrous roots. Masses of thin, spreading roots like some grasses. Some trees have huge fibrous roots that grow deep into the soil. So the second type of root is more scattered, very thin type of root. It doesn't have a middle thick stem, and it's just very long scattered roots all over the place under the plant. There are also root hairs that grow on the surface of the roots. They also take up the water and dissolved minerals mineral salts found in the soil. Making the soil fertile. After the crops are harvested, the soil may not have enough mineral salt for other plants to grow. That's why farmers have to help refresh the soil. They do that by adding straw or rotten plants called compost on the soil to make it more fertile. So after we already used up the mineral salts in the soil by planting a plant that we wanted to grow, and after it's all grown and we took it out of the soil is left with no nutrients. It's no longer fertile. So farmers usually come in after they harvested and they refresh the soil by adding something called compost. Compost is basically just straws and rotten old plants to bring back the nutrients and mineral salts of the soil. Fertilizers. Compost is a natural fertilizer, and from the name, it means something that we added to the soil, then it makes it more fertile. Remember when we saw the picture in the book where the worms pull the dead leaves inside and they decay, helping to form humus? This is what compost does. It helps make the soil fertile by making humus in a natural way. So, we usually use something called fertilizers, like compost. We use compost to create more humus in the ground. Humus is a natural way to keep the soil fertile. There are also chemical fertilizers. They produce mineral salts that help the plant grow, but they don't produce humus, and so they do not improve the soil. There is also a type of fertilizer that is chemical. It's just chemicals that we put on the ground, but they don't really help the ground to create humus, therefore not adding no nutrients to the soil really. Greenhouses. People need to eat all through the year, but some crops don't grow in winter. That is why they plant them in greenhouses when they can regulate the temperature, the amount of water and sunlight. So when we want to plant something in a different season from when it grows, we usually get the plants to grow in a house called a greenhouse. It's basically a big house which is all glass, and it is used to keep an eye on the temperature for it to stay on the right temperature for the plant to grow, where we can give it enough water and monitor and regulate the sunlight for that plant in order for it to grow, although it's not the time of the year for it to grow. Glossary. Compost. Decaying plants, leaves, stems, and other materials that are used to fertilize and improve the soil. Fertilizer. A substance put in the soil so the plant can grow better. Root hairs. One of the tiny hair-like roots which grow on a larger root. Taproot. The main root of a plant that grows straight down. Fibrous root. One of the large mass of thin roots. Evaporates. To change from a liquid to steam or vapor. Wilted. When a plant loses its freshness and droops. That was the end of the lesson. Thank you.